Well, greetings everybody, and welcome to another episode of Anime Anticlimax. This is SeptumSin, and we got kind of delayed because of things, but things happen. So we are back on though with Vision of Escaflowne, part two by the look of the background I chose. But I'm going to hand this over because my familiarity with this is passing. I've only seen it about 3 times. So I will move this over to somebody who has more of a working interest in this series, Roger.
Okay, well, I'll do the best I can. But getting on with the anime. This is called The Vision of Escaflowne. It's a mid '90s anime developed by what's his name, Shoji Kawamori, and illustrated by Katsu Aki. Now, the most important thing about Shoji Kawamori is he was also involved with Macross. So it's a at the time it was Escaflowne was a very important anime. It was a revolutionary in its kind of picture quality and artistic quality, and of course it's also an isekai. So it's just something that people are very familiar with these days. But for its time, definitely it was a mecha show that I have a lot of familiarity with. I loved it so much. I can't tell. I don't remember how many times I've watched it, both on tape, CD, DVD, and also on Blu-ray. So I'm happy that it did come to America. First it came from Bandai, and then it was transferred over to Funimation many years later. But again, the Vision of Escaflowne overall is about basically a young girl. Her name is Hitomi, and she is transported to another unfamiliar world called Gaia by a pillar of light. And when this happens, we are introduced to another major character by the name of Von Faunel. They both are transported back to this another world and another dimension, another world. I know. I must admit, I never did figure out where this world's supposed to be at, but it's in close concert with our own Earth in some manner because they're connected by fate. And of course, fate is a major theme in the whole of the Vision of Escaflowne. Anyways, going on, what did everybody think of Escaflowne? And I guess I want to start with SeptumSin. Did you have a chance to watch it through?
Oh yeah, I've watched this through. This will be the first time I have watched the Japanese sub. Believe it or not.
Remarkable. Good job.
So and it's an okay series. The first time I watched it, I remember getting it from Movie Stop. It was on that, for those of you familiar with Movie Stop, may it rest in peace.
Yes.
It was a nice, like East Coast type business, and it had lots of movies, and they had 50% off anime days. And we really liked those days, those of us who went. And Escaflowne was one. I still have a little sticker on the thing. I think I got it for $10 for the whole thing. And I was curious about it because people had talked about it a lot. So I watched it. And much like this time, I thought a lot of this stuff looks familiar to stuff I've seen, but nothing sticks out for me as like exceptional. It was more of this was okay. And then the second time, it was okay. Third time, it was okay. I didn't hate the series. I didn't love the series. I am okay with the series overall. I think that's probably the best description I can say. This time hasn't changed my mind on it. Matter of fact, I swear I can't remember seeing some of the stuff, which tells me I zoned out on the first 2 times when I went to the end. And it's definitely gotten, and I will say probably it's because the ending was a bit confusing, but still, like I say, I think it was pretty interesting. The art style is definitely different. I am not willing to say for the better, but definitely different. So I will give it that. Very unique look for it. And that's my first impression.
Okay, moving on to Annabelle Arts. Was this the first time you've seen? Well, probably not. But what was your impression of these days of what Escaflowne is?
Well, this is the first time for me to watch the dub all the way through because I initially watched it on Fox Kids when the dub came out, but I had watched it initially before that in subtitle form. Um, and I used to love the look of the series, and that's the only thing that really worked, I feel, in this series. I kind of come to dislike it more as I focus more on the plot and on the character development. And it shows when we get into the elements of what went through with the creation, but I'll save that for later, um, of what happened there. So, yeah, I kind of dislike this series more in time. I feel it's not aged well. Um, it's a nice concept. It's beautiful to look at, but it's a good show probably to watch on mute, in my opinion.
Well, okay. That's everybody has a different opinion about anime, so it's nice to see that there is some contrary opinion to Escaflowne. Going on with my, I've already said that definitely watched this many times. I've actually the first time I've heard of Escaflowne was in a issue of Protoculture Addicts. They used to have these these episode breakdowns, and I thought, oh, look at this, the artwork looks really great. So when the opportunity came up, I definitely watched it. I fell in love, and of course, I watched it many times. That's my definitely my major impression of it is a positive work that definitely had a big impact on anime in general, and at least in my opinion. But going on to next person, Kroll. Was this the first time you've seen Escaflowne?
It is. It is. I don't do subs, so I definitely watch the dub. Um, I enjoyed it. I found this. As you know, I submitted this film, this show as well because I had looked on a list of Dungeons and Dragons players shows that you should watch. And this is one that fell into the 90s and one that was on that list. So, I'm like, okay, well, I'm a huge Dungeons and Dragons fan, so let's check it out. Not really sure why it's recommended for Dungeons and Dragons fans. I didn't feel really much elements of Dungeons and Dragons in it at all. Very, 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 very loosely, maybe. I did enjoy it. I did. I enjoyed the voice acting. I enjoyed the cat, despite other people not liking the character. The main character did annoy me, especially at first, with her screaming. I just can't stand that. I guess I kind of got used to it as it went along, and maybe she wasn't quite as bad later, or I was getting used to it. I'm not sure, because it did chill out for me. But the ending, I wasn't a fan of the ending. I did understand it. I just was not a fan of it. I didn't like it. I think she should have stayed there, or at the very least, like Vaughn go back with her or something. I don't know. It just kind of it seemed like the whole thing was for nothing. Like, she falls in love with like two guys, and she has lots of great adventures and everything, but in the end, she just goes back to her normal life and like it never happened. So,
Yeah, spoiler.
Yes, spoilers.
Well, I'm sorry, but we are. If you haven't seen it by now, too late.
Right.
But anyways, I enjoyed it, and like I said, I don't have a lot of anime in my repertoire. I just started watching some anime, so to me it was something new, and it seemed cool. I mean, I like the Escaflowne itself. This giant robot reminded me of kind of like Transformers, and or over what's that other show with the lions and Voltron.
Right.
Remind me of Voltron somewhat. So I enjoy that. I enjoy bigger robots and stuff. So yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it, and like I said, I like the voice acting, and it was visually appealing as well. So I didn't love it, but I really did enjoy it. So
All right. Well, at least we got somebody kind of liked it. Let's see what Kotobukijake has to say about this. So, was this the first time you watched the Vision of Escaflowne? And did you have a positive look at or something different?
Yes, this was definitely a first time watch for me. I've known about the show for years, and I will second what Brandon said. It's when we would go to movie stop and you would see certain series, you would just see them over and over and over again, and several of those I still have yet to watch, but I know them by name because to me they're like, well, they were the ones I guess that must have been once upon a time kind of the shows that everyone knew. And Escaflowne was one. I would see it, and I knew of it. I never got around to getting it until a few years later. I picked up the Bandai release, the complete series release, probably on a Right Stuff holiday sale. I think I probably got it for 18, $20, something like that, maybe less. And then just sat on it. So I was actually very happy to have an excuse to watch my copy. And I did. I watched the Japanese dub. I have not watched the English dub yet. And I do think that the Japanese dub is quite good for the most part. It has a few, I could do better, but, overall, I don't mind it. And I will say on what Carl said, I can see why it's recommended to gamers. It may not be like drenched in those elements, but they're there. Like there is a bit of a sword and sorcery vibe. There are kingdoms. It's a fantastical setting, kind of a high fantasy setting. There's definitely, there's dragons and that kind of stuff. But it's almost like a medieval-ish isekai mech series, really, when it comes down to it. And it's a weird combination, but, everyone talks about like everything, every show now, apparently every other show is an isekai. But in the mid-late 90s, there were a fair number of high-profile ones. There was this one. You got Inuyasha, you got Fushigi, a handful of others. And compared to those, I would say this is the probably the redheaded stepchild of the three. I very much prefer Inuyasha for pure entertainment. And even though I have described repeatedly Fushigi as the Book of Job crossed with Romeo and Juliet, it still is, I think, well done. Hey, Mike McNally, thanks for joining us. So I did like it though. I have to say that I agree there are some issues with the ending. If we forget that Eikoden exists, Fushigi had a much better ending. But Eikoden, okay, that brings that up for debate. But this one had almost kind of a non-ending, I will agree, and it was kind of disappointing. But otherwise, and there were some things. I understand the show was supposed to be longer, and a lot of the storylines got truncated in weird ways, and that might be why some of the elements didn't mesh for people. I think overall, I didn't have too much issue with it. It was entertaining. I'm going to have to see this again, really, though, before I remember it all that well. I think because one viewing, I'm already. It was a week ago, and I'm already forgetting large portions of the story. To be honest.
Oh, that's
Well,
flashing.
here's the thing: it's not.
Yeah.
It's not just that it was truncated. The series was. What happened with this series is it was initially supposed to be 39 episodes, and it was supposed to be a shonen series. The female lead was not supposed to be the lead character.
Huh.
So we had a complete 180 put into this series in the midst of writing it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not at all what it was initially supposed to be. And that shows, especially towards the end, where it's just kind of like a hodgepodge of trying to solve everything in one little convenient package.
I actually am almost afraid to go back to Fushigi Yugi, but I do feel like whenever I think of older isekai, I always think that one.
Magic Knight Rayearth, another isekai.
Yeah, actually,
that one.
Actually, Magic Knight Rayearth, I think, is a better example of this type because it is an isekai fantasy that uses mechs.
And El Hazard. Yeah. El Hazard is another isekai.
Oh, yeah. El Hazard is a good one. I forgot about that.
I forgot. Yeah, I totally forgot. And I have a nice set for El Hazard. But still, yeah. Yep.
Well, then we have a lot of anime to talk about, at least at some time in the future. But going on, if there's no more pointers to point out, we'll start with the episodes.
All right.
Of course, there's a couple ways you can do this. We can go ahead and do with one episode at a time, or we can go and group ideas. So, what does everybody think?
I'd say group.
Group ideas. All right, let's do that. I just want to kind of like have to give everybody a choice because a lot of time go step by step. But anyways, when we start out with Escaflowne, Hitomi is just a normal girl. She has a crush on her on a kind of like a one-way love relationship with a friend of hers named Amano. And of course, we are introduced to the special red necklace that Hitomi has. Of course, it's just a red necklace. It has nothing to do with anything right now, but it's an important plot part. And of course, she takes up a challenge that Amano gives her to run a race in a shorter time than her best race possible. And of course, she wants to impress her senpai, and she does it. By doing that, she'll be able to confess.
Notice me, senpai.
Yeah, it has something to do with something happened. So this is a fateful moment. When she starts running towards him, we notice that the necklace, when her husband or her love holds out the necklace and kind of decides to time her run with the necklace. The necklace does swing in time with 1 second. Mm-hmm. Each time that doesn't swing precisely every time, so she's trying to break her record by counting the number of swings. But when she is approaching her senpai, a large column of light comes down, and we see a strange boy pop out of it. He is wearing armor. He speaks in a strange language, and then we have a big mess. So, what did everybody think about this particular scene?
Well, I mean, this is probably one of the points because I like I said, I watched this as it was coming out initially on sub on VHS, and this was one of the things that really brought me into continuing the series because I was like, oh, well, this is a great scene because they did an amazing job with this dragon fight that comes out in fights in Japan and Tokyo modern day, and you see this amazing battle go on between Vaughn and this dragon, and it's not even gotten to the mech part. It's literally just a guy versus a dragon in Tokyo. And it was kind of like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I admit I like this. Actually, there's still part of me that might even look at this better as just a basic fantasy anime instead of adding the mechs, but I did like the initial. There is a part of me that wonders what a series would be like if they hadn't had the stuff and you just had this love triangle between the two girls and the guy in a regular high school romance anime. But still, You never know. But yeah, I agree. I actually liked the action scene versus the dragon. I thought it was pretty cool.
All right. Well, eventually Yvonne does become triumphant over the dragon. He cuts the dragon open and
I
drags.
have something to say about it too.
Yep. This
Well,
crystal thing.
also, part of the race thing, if she beats her record, he also said he'd give her a kiss, which she desperately wanted him to be her first kiss. So that was extra incentive for her to win. Unfortunately, she got teleported away, and the dragon fight, I really enjoyed as well. It was fun. I mean, to me, they're just giant lizards, not dragons. They call them dragons, but they're not really dragons to me.
Yeah, basically, dragons got 2 legs and 2 wings, but can breathe fire. So yeah, it's kind of close approximation.
I mean, you can loosely call it a dragon, I guess, but to me, it's not a dragon. But it's still a good fight. I still enjoyed it. So yeah, that was just my 2 cents worth.
And I actually do think that one thing about the main character here that I will give to most is she's not this insanely beautiful anime girl.
Right.
You can feel like this one would speak out to female viewers of it. Like she could be that every girl that not like our harem protagonists are, except for her. Well, which in a way it is kind of harem in a sense as you go. But
it becomes kind of a reverse harem. Yeah,
I mean the princesses were good looking and stuff, but yeah, she wasn't anything special.
She and her best friend is more traditionally pretty than she is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And
I hated the short hair too.
I was going to say I did appreciate and like the fact that that she is actually not completely useless in a sense. She is actually a legit track runner who has some
divination powers,
some physicals. Well, she has divination powers too, which
she is physically fit. So
yeah, she is actually genuinely fast. Yeah,
she definitely she isn't useless. She definitely uses the running to save on a couple times, and so you definitely she isn't a damsel in distress, which is good.
That's up to debate, in my opinion, as the series goes on.
Well, yeah, I mean, as the series goes on, she's surrounded by these people who are really impressive. I'm just saying, like, sometimes you have these
for a normal human.
Sometimes you have these female leads who are just a pretty face, and this is a case where it's not. So we're
all saying the tomboy look is not good.
Well, no. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all.
I hate short hair and girls.
Although the weird pointy nose is not a good look, and that's one thing I will say about the animation style. One thing I will say about the animation style generally in this series is I don't like those pointy upturned noses that several of the characters have.
I second you on that.
Yeah. Okay, I gotta explain something. This was created by Sunrise. Sunrise did another series exact same time with a mecha that had the same design, and that was called Macross Plus. So the nose was sort of like the artist's interpretation of how they wanted the characters to look. They did it again with Macross Plus at the same time. Shorter series, different mech series, and of course that's sci-fi. But in my opinion, it kind of worked better in Macross Plus than it did in Escaflowne.
Yeah, I haven't seen Macross Plus, so I can't really comment on that. Most of the animation in this series didn't bother me that much, but that was one thing I definitely have to nitpick.
I have an issue with animation later in the series.
Okay.
But I'll bring it up later when it comes up.
Yeah, the noses do come back later in other type of animes. To come think kind of foggy, trying to remember the titles, but there's one about a almost like a large detective That's like the same kind of like animation with long noses. And you had some other anime that had to do with another world. There's some survival anime in another world. But yeah, the Snozzolas are kind of hard to get used to. But I kind of like tolerated them and moved on from there. Anyway, well,
it's a little different when you have a show like, let's say, One Piece, where the characters all look exaggerated and a little bit ridiculous. So, Usopp's hunker looks right at home.
Oda kind of does that just to be, he will draw a huge amount. No matter, people give him crap about all his females look the same, but he does have different looking females. But he has a crap ton of males that are different.
Yeah.
So he kind of exaggerates the form in all senses of the way. This artist, I mean, when you create a character and you're an lead artist for design, you have your little niches and focus. And I'm guessing the artist behind this had a thing for noses. That's simply it.
Yeah, later works that I did carry forward to the
They all have Barbra Streisand noses.
Now, as Cole pointed out, Hitomi does have a divination power. She uses a set of tarot decks, and the tarot deck does come in artistic flourish throughout the anime, that she can look into the future to some extent and try to find something that will prevent disasters from happening, or maybe define a relationship. But
each episode's also related to a tarot card. That's something they noted. Animerica was a big magazine back in the day that Viz put out, and they covered Escaflowne like for 4 months. And they made note about the tarot cards, and that each episode is basically represented through a tarot card.
Yep.
So, if you had a chance of getting one of the two collectibles, which one would you rather have? Escaflowne themed tarot cards, or a set of the Clo cards from Cardcaptor Sakura?
Well, I have the Clo cards.
The tarot cards.
I much prefer the Clow cards. I have the Clow cards. I actually do have those. I do not have any tarot cards, but I do have the Clow cards.
Well,
you have the wands.
Cards. I'll probably go with the Fate ones.
See, then you just need the wand so you can activate all the spells.
Damn straight. Well, it's a bit hard to find that wand, but.
Okay, well, eventually the Hitomi and Vaughn they get transported to another world called Gaia, and of course Hitomi, being a 15-year-old high school kid, is pretty much in shock. She doesn't understand what's going on. Nobody knows. She just knows she got grabbed up by this pillar of light. She looked at it and looked at a dragon that almost killed her, and a young boy that helped her out that speaks a strange language. But anyway, they landed in another world, and she's told it's called Gaia. So moving on from there, though, we do find out there's another important element to this world. Besides, there's a lot of for an anime, it does have a good amount of politics to it. We got the Zybok Empire, and they're trying to to take over the world. But it kind of takes place in a small village or kind of kingdom that Vaughn kind of has leadership over. And we find out that in this world, there's these giant mech things called Melefs. And you have a superior form called a Guy Melef. Okay? And because of the wars and how things happen, Melefs and Guy Melefs are very important. They're tools of war. And we also find out because of the intervention of the Zybok Empire, the world is in a kind of a large worldwide battle. So does anybody have any?
Before we find out any of that, we encounter Fanel's annihilation at the hands of what appear to be invisible Melefs, which we find out are from Zybok. they managed to wipe out most of his country. He had basically been killing the dragon was his rite of passage to become king.
Are we going to skip over the name title here? Before any of that, you discover the ritual was to take over the Gaimelef Escaflowne.
Yes.
Well, synergistic the dragon. It required a blood sacrifice from the holder,
Right.
and the dragoness, the crystal thing. Von was trying, of course, to save his kingdom from being annihilated by the Zybok Empire. There was another big time, like a short-lived character, but a very important character, Bargus.
Yeah.
That sacrifice his life to let everybody, to get everybody out of there. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on in this short period of time.
Yeah.
When we meet another kingdoms represented by this guy named Alan Cesar, he comes out.
Cesar.
Yeah, it said, "I am Alan Cesar. I am beautiful."
We also meet the cat girl assistant to Von.
Yeah, Merle.
Basically, Merle's like his only countryman who ends up spending much time in the series.
She's the only one that really survived.
Well, they imply that several survived but scattered, like they were in hiding, basically. But she was really the one that followed him because, she had to be with Von. She was his. But
well, I mean, I gotta say it. One of the worst characters that gets no real backstory is Merle. We kind of just gloss over it, and she just constantly follows.
I mean, you can tell they were lifelong friends, and obviously she's in love with him.
You get a little bit of backstory. I don't know how much you need with her, but
you get to learn a little more about her race when you see the other two cat girls and them growing up.
Yeah, they wouldn't attack her.
Salty to it.
She's another cat girl, so it's like they have a code like not to attack each other no matter what side they're on. So that's kind of interesting.
And when we get to those two, they're kind of an interesting group. I overall did not. I did not have the antipathy toward the cat girls that I know some do. But it's probably also worth mentioning while we're still in the early part before we get too far that Hitomi learns when she looks up in the sky that she can see the Earth and the moon, and that apparently her planet is known to these people as the Mystic Moon. And so she's kind of gives her an interesting bit of notoriety, I guess you could say. But
the girl from the Mystic Moon,
like a mystic, or kind of like a shaman or someone of spiritual power,
right? And the fact that she does have some powers in that field kind of just lends credence to that, I guess. Yeah.
All right, and here's where I wanted to talk about the animation thing that's bothering me because of my experience with animation.
Sure.
The Chimera fights. They look okay. They're stiff. They're not the best mech, even at the time. Like I said, Macross Plus came out at the time, and you had Gundam Wing coming around the same time. Both of them had far better mecha fights. But what really bothered me is I continuously saw throughout this is they would put people in the foreground just not moving, not doing anything, just staring at the mechs.
Right. This one was also contemporary with Evangelion, talking about mech series. But
Evangelion's the same time around. So
I know what you mean, though.
Stiffly, but I mean, I get why they move stiffly. But I think that added to they're better mech series.
I think that added to it with the stiffness and stuff. Well,
I mean, I'm fine with the stiffness of the mechs. I'm not fine with just keeping the foreground characters just watching stiffly in the foreground. They don't move, they don't breathe, they don't do anything, and you can see them there.
I gotta give his bodyguard, Van's bodyguard, props though, because I mean that dude was just like, heck with that. I'll stand up against these mechs on my darn self. He was
right.
He's pretty tough man.
Right.
He was badass. He ended up using a sword against them on his own.
Right.
Well, we did have our first major mech battle during the burning of Vaughn City. You know, the invisible time elves that that could attack with these long extendable metal rods or sword, and then reformable swords. We have a couple of important characters, at least at that time, perish.
Right.
And we also see that Vaughn, he has the ability. He knows about the special weapon they have hidden, sealed off. So he goes off running towards it, and then activates the machinery that allows the Escaflowne, the guy melf of this particular city, come down out of nowhere,
Right.
and then activate it with the Dragonist, which of course had the blood, but had a blood sacrifice from Vaughn. He bites his finger, wipes it across the Dragonist, and inserts it inside the crystal on Escaflowne's front breastplate. Of course, he enters the mech, and this is where there'd probably be some little bit of pushback, saying that why we have to use the same animation cells over and over again, because anytime Bond goes in, he kind of reaches in and starts with all the machinery, and Escaflowne starts standing up. And
I'm actually impressed with that part. Because in most mech series, you don't see the sort of the function of the mech. You only sort of see them with controls, and it's just kind of awkward. This is the one series you kind of really see it work and how it works and puts together. So this one thing I actually have to credit to them, because the only other time I've seen something like that, ironically, was in an X-Men diagram I ran across, where they had a mecha and they showed how it worked internally.
Yeah, well, of course, Zabak has arrived at Fan City to take Escaflowne, and of course, Vaughn has decided to first fight, and then he decides to try to save his compatriots as much as possible to lure the Zyboks away. So if we find out that not only can Escaflowne fight as a humanoid, it can also transform into a flying dragon kind of mech. It kind of goes back to what Joji liked to do with transformable Valkyries.
I don't think we quite got there until after the second attack, if I remember correctly, because that was basically, if I remember correctly, I think Pretty Boy Alan and his compatriots came in and helped them escape, and then their little outpost was attacked at second, and I think it was getting away from there that we saw the dragon form.
We shouldn't forget the fight between Vaughn and Alan when they first met too.
We also should mention that this is the introduction of the Zabak character De Landau, who was a very frustrating character for me. I
not
missed
stand him.
opportunity. I liked De Landau at first. The character was a psychopathic, bloodthirsty, just
child that needed to be put on the being spanked.
I gotta say this though, I much prefer De Landau in the sub versus the dub, because the dub has a voice actor. I think it's a voice actress that was known through Ocean, because the dub was done through Ocean Group, and the voice actor played a lot of child characters because they had a real childlike voice, and it sounded so wrong versus the sub where you have him, especially when he gets his cheek cut and he goes insane, where he's going cut, and then he's just like cut.
And the Japanese one, the Japanese voice is Minami Takayama, who the other two roles that I associate that character with are Nabiki Tendo, who we'll be meeting next month with Ramo and Half, but also she played Envy in the Full Metal series. So
the dub, ironically, most of this dub cast is going to be in the Ramo and Half cast for the dub as well, with the exception of Hitomi, who was the voice actress of another Takahashi creation that Jacob already mentioned. She is Kagome from Inuyasha.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be too surprised about that because the Ocean Group does have a certain catalog of voice actors that they tend to use and reuse again. But it's a good thing because you always when you're watching a Viz production, you can figure out that this lady played Akane and then she played something else. Another character be the same voice actor, but they still had pretty good talent. So I really didn't have an issue.
And
I had two problems. I had the Landau's problem, and then I had I only remember her first name, Venus, who played female Rama. She plays the princess
Venus
in here.
Terzo.
Oh yeah.
Terzo. Okay. She played 5 or 6 characters, including all of the princesses, all of the female princesses. And I love her as Rama, but she has no vocal range to change her pitch and tone. So it's like hearing the same character talk multiple times, and if she's talking with her, if it's the sisters talking as princesses, it's literally them talking to themselves.
Well, I guess we need to watch the dub next time. I guess so. I've never watched it anywhere any other way than the sub.
Definitely the Japanese dub does have some pretty well-known vocal talent attached, and they do. Our two leads, Maya Sakamoto, not only plays Hitomi but sings the opening theme. Tomokazu Seki is Vaughn. And you've got Shinichiro Miki as Pretty Boy Allen.
Head for a month.
What happened?
So that song's been stuck in my head for a month.
I know. Well, that's the Yoko Kanno influence. I have no doubt.
I mean, that is to note. This is a Yoko Kanno production. For those who don't know, Yoko Kanno is probably, as I've stated in the group, she is the John Williams of anime.
Pretty close.
Yeah, because she also did Tank for Cowboy Bebop.
I mean, she did multiple series. I mean, she did Macross Plus soundtrack, which is an amazing soundtrack.
Sharing Apple stuff.
Yeah.
I believe she did a lot of stuff with Shinichiro Miki. I know they teamed together for Kids on the Slope and Carol and Alice, and I think they did Samurai Champloo, didn't they?
I don't know if she was involved with Samurai Champloo, because that was more hip hop. I think they went with somebody different. But
the others I know.
Yeah.
And Kids on the Slope had phenomenal music. So
and Yoko Kanno even did was part of the Netflix Cowboy Bebop. As shameful as it was, the music was good in that series. That's the only thing I can give that.
On that note, definitely I want to point out that Escaflowne is one of the few animes that I actually will watch the beginning title and the end title too. That's about every single episode.
And it looks like my boy Dryden here is played by Joroto Kosugi. One of his more notable roles was Arlong in One Piece, as well as Asuma Saratobi in Naruto. He's had a few fun.
I also want to get this warning out: do not watch the Escaflowne movie. It is probably one of the worst anime films.
I admit they had a lot to squeeze into one movie length.
Yeah.
So as opposed to, I mean, that's the thing that's different between this and because we talked about Puella and the movies, and Puella took 12 episodes, adapted it into 2 movies, and it worked out really well. But again, this one took like 26 episodes and squeezed it into one movie. That just no. That one.
Not to mention the Puella movies were long by anime standards. I don't know how long this movie was, but you know,
It's like an I think it was a little more than an hour and a half. But everybody, Embria was right that was a flawed movie. Not every movie can be like the Load Region of Deja Vu, pretty much a perfect movie, or the Silent Voice, another perfect movie. There's all kinds of flaws with this, particularly because of the plot and the rapidly advancing plot in the movie. And also the late introduction of Escaflowne was a problem. Was my problem with the movie. They left way all the way to the end.
right? It's like if you're going to dash off a second part to finish off the story, trying to take a little bit of time sometimes can be a good idea. I mean, again, I don't know. I haven't seen this movie, so I can't really comment on it.
I sadly have to admit I bought the most expensive set of that movie, and I no longer have it. I'm kind of glad I no longer have it.
Yep. I still have the original. I still have my original set, the deluxe box art set, because I like the box art. I did buy the standard set as well to watch. So
I kept the music CD, but from that set, but that's it.
Oh yeah, talking about the music CD, I did buy the Vision of Escaflowne soundtrack that came in a nice really CD, and there was the symphony from Israel. It was an Israeli symphony, symphonic orchestra that did this show. So a lot of the music found in the anime was it was grandeur to me. It was big, grandeur, it was exciting. The mech fights were all right, but the music that went along with them was better. So yeah, I really enjoyed them.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up to also move us along is Van suffers from a anime protagonist syndrome, where he's overly eager and violent. And of course,
at least a shonen protagonist syndrome, yes.
He's got 90s protagonist syndrome too. He's a very angsty teen.
Yes.
Poor Alan, as soon as he appears, not even willing to talk to him. He just goes right for him. It's like,
for a fight,
And of course, Alan was not much better at that because
I am Alan Shazar.
Yeah, he said, "Look, if you fight me, then it's to the death." He lied.
Right.
It would have been.
I was trying to scare him off,
We did have a pretty interesting fight between the Escaflowne and Alan's guy Melf. I know it's a German name or something like the Shujinad or something like that.
Yeah, Scheherazade, I think it is.
They're pretty one-sided, and it kind of went to what Alan Shazar. He was supposed to call the heavenly swordsman or heavenly level swordsman. That he could definitely hold his own against any kind of sword play in the entire show. But we did see an interesting kind of an early fight between them at this time.
Well, I mean, it's got to be noted, this series constantly borrows from a lot of different cultures. We go into Atlantis later, which is Greek. We get Norse mythology mixed in there. We get German mixed in there.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like they didn't know what they wanted in this world.
Actually, Scheherazade is actually taken from the name of the lead character in 1001 Nights, which brings Arabic storytelling
into it. Yeah.
Well, we do have guys with very long hair, so I know they had some sort of influence from that.
Right.
Yeah. Quick. I guess we can move on. We do find out that let's see. We're trying to find where kind of went together.
Not to mention, we should mention that neighboring kingdom that they end up visiting seems heavily modeled on kind of Indian Hindu kind of.
That's after you go through the Venice world or Venice area.
Right.
So the place that happens right after Alan's fortress, they go to the Venice culture area where we meet the princess.
Right. Right.
and
Yeah,
learn about her situation, and her connection to Alan, and the mystery of her sister, who's dead. We know is dead. They tell us is dead. And then we move to the Arabic country, and we have where the series really starts to kill it for me, because it's where we get introduced to the young prince of that world.
Yes.
And we get introduced that
Who seems strangely familiar somehow.
He looks a lot like Alan.
Yeah.
Why?
Like a little kid. That's because the little prince had blue eyes and blonde hair and looked exactly like Alan. Doesn't mean it was really Alan's progeny did it.
Versus the father, who's a tan-skinned, dark-haired, green-eyed guy.
Right.
So it's probably the first time in history where a child is born accidentally from a white guy from a black guy in that kind of culture. Usually it goes the opposite way, where it's like, oops. But and
he's my son. What, really?
What pisses me off is the series reveals this to us at this point. The characters learn about it at this point.
Yeah.
And then come later in the series, they completely think it's a new thing.
Yeah. I wondered if anyone else read that the same way I did, because I got the distinctive, I cannot remember. Honestly, I cannot remember. You guys can tell me if I'm remembering right or wrong. If he told me he had it confirmed to her at this point, but she basically figured it out. And then later there was that thing.
She's like, oh my gosh.
Then there was that thing later where Millerna confirmed it to her. And then she had this huge reaction like she was learning for the first time. And it was like, I thought you already figured this out.
You knew this like twice already.
And the series does this continuously, in my opinion. Where they'll be like, we haven't figured this, or we had this moment, we figured out, and then we get down to the point and we figure it out again, and the people are completely surprised about it.
Now we did also around this time. We also have another a sudden extravagant discovery that Mon has a brother.
Yep.
It is his name is Tolkien. And he's like some sort of minister or some sort of diplomat from the good old people.
He's a sorcerer in a world that we never really see sorcery.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we never see sorcery, even though they heavily go into magic at the end.
They kind of call him a sorcerer. It almost seems more like an honorary title than anything.
Yeah.
I kind of got that the idea initially was the sorcerers were the mechanics, the people that devised and came up with mechanics of the world.
Yeah, mechanic chemists in the sort, because I mean, he was the one who divined the luck fluid that he had transferred into the cat girls. Kind of like an alchemist, I guess you could say.
Right, and I was going to say, in a sense, they're kind of Zybok, and particularly the sorcerers in Zybok and their emperor. They are kind of, I think, similar to the way Full Metal uses alchemists, because they're not sorcerers in the usual sense, but they're certainly doing things that don't quite go to science.
And I need to call out the Empire. The actual look of the Empire. If I cannot say I am not the only person who looked at that city and saw Final Fantasy VI. I mean, down to the button, the Empire in Final Fantasy VI looked like the Empire in this series. And the irony is, the 6 would have come out a little bit earlier than this series. So I have to say that they probably took influence.
Another piece of influence that I can go back to with Kroll about, there is one piece of the Dungeons and Dragons that did carry over to this anime. And it was those large floating fortresses that Zybok made. First appeared in Dragonlance. They also had floating cities.
Oh, really?
Well, there's a lot of pretty cool stuff, and again, there are some interesting. There is an interesting world building, and that's one thing I feel that does work with the way the plot is, because the plot has them going from kingdom to kingdom, so you get to see a little bit of that. But to me, I actually think it would have worked even better if they weren't in the mix, because then you would be on the ground. You would actually be introduced to more of the wildlife, more of the monsters of the world. I think that might actually have even been better in a lot of senses, because
they might have been able to still do the whole thing with the invisibility cloaks and whatever, and just say that that's normal special garb for their fighters. It didn't need to be a mech thing.
I gotta say, the invisibility cloaks is a way to cheap out an animation.
Well,
that's all it was.
Yeah, it is that.
That, and plus they also fly too.
Hey, they could have gone the Final Fantasy VI route with the mechs.
Plot-wise, it does give a chance for Hitomi to be valuable in this world and to help Van with his own growth, because she kind of teaches him to focus and find your enemy, and when they're invisible, it's much harder than when they're just lumbering around in plain sight. Yeah. So I could see how it worked as a plot device, but I definitely see your point that they probably saved a lot of money with it too.
Okay, well, eventually we do get to meet we talked about the young prince. There was a battle, and there were various. I think there were a couple of Zybok pilots that were captured, and they were to be interrogated by this other priest guy that could see inside minds. And to prevent this, I think it was Falcon had sent a assassin to get rid of that.
A changeling assassin, to be precise.
Did we skip over Alan's kingdom, the one that was ruled by the douchebag? But
I think
kind of. I mean, like I said, that was the Venice place, and we didn't really spend much time there.
It
did just kind of sit in for the typical kind of old Europe kind of what do we want to say, corrupt kind of he's not a nincompoop, he's corrupt, you know,
under the thrall of the Zybok Empire. They're like a puppets of the Zybok Empire, so they're right in lockstep with them.
So, the thing, there's not a lot of takeaways I wanted to put from that, but there's one that is very important, which is it introduces the princess, which does play a huge part in the story.
The Miliana, I think her name was.
Yeah.
And then, of course, which is, of course, Alan's initial love interest. And then we also have the fact that you get to see the Empire acting in a diplomatic fashion, which is kind of cool in there as they talk.
Might be burned down.
Well, I got to correct you there, Brandon. The princess is not his love interest. She's interested in Alan.
Yeah.
No, Alan was interested in her sister.
Yeah.
That died.
Alan was in love with her sister, but I think he had an interest in her.
Yeah, I think he had an interest in her.
Alan was a playboy, and he definitely liked the ladies. There's no question about that. He just liked her on a different level than what he liked her late sister on.
But I did want to introduce that because the princess, I don't look at a lot of the character building as huge, but I do think that the princess is one that actually developed pretty well throughout. You can see a development from her being the typical snooty princess at the beginning, and to being much more of a well-rounded person in the end.
We talked about we talked about early on how Hitomi's not your typical captured woman. Hitomi gets captured more, and she doesn't do that. The princess doesn't get captured. She actually
Right.
proves to be useful. She proves to be a student of medicine,
Yes.
actually trying to heal people.
Yeah.
Yes,
Um,
and she proves to be a diplomat when when she meets her betrothed Dryden, who turns out to not be at all what she anticipated, and they actually decide to make a go of it. Not even though they don't really have much attraction to each other, they
Well, I think he
both
was attracted to her,
understand
but-
the value of the arrangement and. I agree. I think like of the three, Hitomi shows some growth, but not a huge amount.
Yeah.
Merle shows almost no real growth as the series goes on. They all started in the
She does learn to like Tommy a
Yeah.
little bit.
I think that, I
Well,
mean, I would
you
say
know,
the princess
comparatively
has
speaking.
the most growth of the series.
Yeah.
Other than Van, the princess is probably the one that's had the
Well,
most emotional growth in the series.
Van is debatable because he really he's still
I
at
think he did
point-
grow.
I think so, but I think a lot of his growth was forced.
Maybe.
like I said, angsty teen.
Yes, I feel like he was kind of hovering in the same safe zone almost until the end game, and then he was forced to change. I felt like his growth was more as it was convenient to the plot.
I think a big moment for him was during that time where he did have that battle where he was ripping through them and he got haunted by
Yeah.
the souls of the ones he killed. But again, that really was, I actually kind of agree with you. That did feel almost forced.
That was not only forced. He was raised to be a killer. He was raised to kill and fight in wars.
Well, again,
And you're
his rite
getting
of passage-
traumatized in a battle. You're
His
winning.
rite of passage to become king was to kill a dragon single-handedly.
And grab the
Yeah.
Dracula.
And I know the big lesson was supposed to be to not just look at things as I must kill to win. And that was his big life lesson that he had to learn by the end of the series. But I really do think that was something that, again, it was one of my bigger complaints of the series was that
I felt Van's brother was far better growth than
Yes.
Van was.
Oh, definitely.
His brother was actually fairly interesting. Not as much at first because he was just like, oh, another mysterious cloaked figure. But eventually, yes.
Yeah.
And especially once the Catgirl sisters came in and you saw his relationship with them, it got pretty interesting.
Yeah. And then when he flips sides and stuff, and
Yeah. Now, back to, I guess, the story. Yes, I do like the doppelganger character. I thought that it was interesting how they looked at the arc and how her ability to see the future kind of turned the tables on him by showing him his own death and freaking him the heck out. I was just like,
Yeah, that particular vision pretty much psychologically damaged Hitomi.
Yeah, I was going to say that freaked her out too, and yes, it was not a pleasant death.
The series has a lot of psychological trauma to people throughout the series. Because you get DeLandau goes insane after getting cut on the cheek, and then watching his comrades die. You deal
He
with
almost
the
dies.
Suffering of Van's brother. Yeah.
I'll say that's one of the reasons why I kind of like DeLandau as a character. Is like he's this bloodthirsty, crazy butcher
single-minded.
who
All he thought was taking over.
is, however, bitterly, violently loyal to his comrades. He is loyal to his comrades, even though
Yeah.
he they orders them to go straight into battle, no fear, what have you. But
that's what he does too.
it's like there are different elements there, and I don't know why, but I've always been kind of intrigued by those kind of characters. Like, you get the ones that could care less. The Zap Brannigans of the world. I'd gladly send wave after wave of my own men to.
Did anybody actually pick up on the whole secret thing that he was actually a she technically?
No.
That was hacked in the end. I guarantee you that was hacked in the end.
Plot twist for me. That was
something that just caught me totally off guard. I was like, and I thought to myself, why? At this point, I thought the character was well enough defined that why did you have to do that?
That came down. I mentioned before that they kind of ruined Delandau. I think that was one. I mean, in a way, it was an interesting twist. It could have been a great twist, but they handled it so.
They didn't have a backstory for him at that point, and they needed to bring it in at the last minute. So they said, "Oh, well, we've got this little plot point dangling on Alan's life, so let's bring them together and do it. Say magic. Magic's the reason."
Right. If you're going to do a twist like that, you got to earn it. I mean, I love twists that come out of nowhere
I agree. I mean, I was still kind of like shocked, and I did enjoy the twist, but I agree it would have been much better if they had earned it. And because like I said, before that, I did not like Delandau. It was just, to me, it was just an annoying little kid that needed to be spanked.
Again, maybe if I'd watched that English dub and if he had sounded like a little kid, like I'm hearing apparently in the English, I probably might have agreed. But again, the voice actress does such a good job with that kind of character that I liked the vocal performance.
To me, if we remove the ending for Delandau would be an amazing villain for that time.
Right.
Yeah. But he wasn't that way. I mean, because you don't, around that time you saw redemption characters, but you didn't see someone go really insane for a villain.
Yeah.
There wasn't one that snapped around that time.
I think they could have done it better. Yeah, they probably have had to kill off the character, but if having him do one final insane move and maybe even kill off a core character because of it, I think that would have probably been a better way of ending him than they did.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, Alan and Vaughn fought because Vaughn's like, "This is my enemy," and Alan's like, "Well, that's my sister."
Which is the big twist. Delandau is Alan's sister.
Yeah.
So they changed gender through magic that never gets seen.
Well, I think it was a girl all along. No one realized it because she had.
No, they actually changed form. You see Delandau with a naked chest.
Yeah, Delandau showed in a lot of the series.
Well, we did see it. Delandau do change maybe once before the last final change back to the sister. He did have slipping moments. I'll call them slipping moments into his girl form.
Yeah.
Girl form versus a guy form because the magic was unstable. And so therefore it was just tearing her apart as two separate personalities.
Another part where it was poorly handled was, I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, y'all. I think the first time we saw the sister was when she was in that garden in what appeared to almost be like a hospital type setting where they were recovering, and I did not even recognize at first that it was Delandau.
That's the first time we see her alive. And we saw a flashback in Delandau's memory of her in prison.
Okay.
And we saw Alan talk about her at her home before she would disappear.
But the part that made it kind of confusing and made me not sure at first what I was seeing was the introduction of another Beastman character that we had not seen or heard of before this point.
Exactly.
And that was how we became. And I was like, if you're going to pull something like this, you need to tether it to the story at hand. They should have had a different character in that role, or introduce that character sooner.
Again, the series was supposed to be a shonen for 39 episodes. They cut it down to a 26 episode and made it a shoujo. So that's why you got this mess. That's why you have this hackneyed ending for Delandau. I fully believe if it was originally as it was supposed to be, Delandau would be just a crazy male protagonist or antagonist.
Right.
Well, we don't talk about plot twists as we go along with the show and the sequence of events. There is a battle between Zodbok and that Arabian country. I think it's called Freed or something like that.
Yeah, it's Freed.
They go into the battle, and the result of this battle, we find a very important piece of information that Vaughn, through Hitomi's help, has decided to tune himself, to imagine himself working as one with Escaflowne. And during the battle, when he was using his power, he finds out, of course, we all find out that when Escaflowne is damaged, so is Vaughn.
Vaughn almost died from that.
Because it comes out in the battle. They're a furious battle with the Zybok soldiers. He had a number of life-threatening cuts that could not be healed. They could not see it. They could not bind them right. They couldn't. The blood still came out, and we find out that there was a curse, some sort of a legendary curse that went along with the Spanos. I think the Spanos made these Guy Melfs. That the users would be cursed by Escaflowne, or mechs, Guy Melfs by the Spanos, that they would come and bite them back. And we find out that bite back is whenever Escaflowne is damaged, Vaughn takes a certain amount of damage that's proportional to what the Escaflowne takes.
And he essentially can only be healed by the mech being fixed.
Which we have the first version of OnStar ever created.
Yes, the reason why we had to talk about Dryden, because Dryden is the only one that has figured out how to call the Spanos. He has some sort of library. He's an illuminated guy that happens to be very wealthy as well. He has a fleet of ships. He has unparalleled beauty and riches and wealth and all the other stuff. But he has, through his library, he has found out that Escaflowne has a special homing mechanism, like OnStar, as Inbia was talking about. He was able to summon the Spanos through that. But we find out that the cost of that was absorbent. It took pretty much 90% of what Dryden had built over his young career. But that's really interesting, seeing this big old thing this big ship come from the clouds.
Yeah, right. Like ridiculously huge ship.
It looks like some sort of hook with a funny end on it.
Right.
Of course, the people, the Spanos said that we demand our payment in full, and that turned out to be was Dryden's wealth and most of his pretty much all of his fleet except for one ship. Of course, Dryden says, "Don't do this again. I can't afford it again for the repairs."
Right.
Also, we kind of forgot about another kind of really important character. His name is Donkirk, and he happens to be the emperor of Zybok. We find out that
brief reference.
Yeah. We find out that Fulkin has been in contact with the Empire through a special television, like some television projection screen. And Donkirk had already warned them that beware of the dragon. Of course, that's Escaflowne transformed to a dragon, so the connotations are clear that the Zybots had to suppress the Escaflowne or suffer defeat.
They generally, they seem to refer to Von generally as the dragon. And there's also, you come to find out that he is what they call, I think it's a draconic or a draconid or whatever.
Draconian.
A draconian. You come to find out eventually that Vulcan is as well. But that's, it's kind of an interesting idea because they're almost more like angels, the way the wings are, but they're like this hated ancient race that everyone thinks is gone except for these random people. And Von's father had mated with one, and so they
they're the initial people of Atlantis from Earth.
Yes.
As the series states.
Yes.
But they're more like angels than draconians.
And I do want to mention, because I overlooked it before, but our boy Fulkin is played in the Japanese by Joji Nakata, who we looked at last month as the voice of Alucard. So, yeah, so it's kind of fun to see him in a slightly less insane role. Toning it down a little.
Insane.
Well, toning it down a little bit. You know what I mean? Like Alucard gave him a chance to chew the scenery, and here he does it more restrained. But I like Joji Nakata. He's a good voice actor. So that was I had somehow overlooked that when we mentioned him before.
Yeah.
But,
well, we do find out. I know now, Miles. We're pretty much threw away the chronological sequence of the show, which is all good. But we do find out that, again, I'm going to point out that Fate has a strong influence on the show. So one thing we find out that what was his name? Vulcan has a tragic fate that will befall him in the future, and is signified by his black wings. I kind of found that to be pretty interesting. That there's a lot of predestination, I guess I can call it. That there was nothing you can do to change the ways of fate, because fate's going to happen.
But that's weird, because it contradicts itself too, because it talks about, of course, our main character is like, yeah, what you predicted is not necessarily what's going to come. You're the one who's been helping to steer it that way. And so fate is not changeable except for when it is.
Yeah, which is very confusing. That's the overall theme of the series.
Fate's not changeable except when we decide to change
when it is. Yeah, it's very muddled concept there.
Like she changed it, now he's changing it with his machine. It's like, and
it brings up the concept. The main reason I really have come to dislike this series is it's a Indiana Jones of the Lost Ark concept, where if Indy didn't get involved in the Lost Ark, it would still have ended up the way it did.
Yes, I saw that episode of Big Bang Theory. Bastards.
and it's the same concept here in Escaflowne. If Hitomi didn't get involved, it would have still ended the same way. In fact, it would not have nothing would happen.
I don't know, because Von probably would have died way before.
Here's the thing, though. The only reason the Empire had the weapon was by bringing Alan and Hitomi together.
Right, I get that, but Von would have died way before they even had the weapon.
Yeah, so what? I mean,
I think your point being that the overall fate for Gaia would have been basically the same.
Maybe, but I mean, Indiana Jones, we definitely can say, Indy didn't do anything really. But with this, it's just guessing that it could be the same, but it could turn out a lot different, because Von was a leading person, and of course we don't know what happened afterwards. I mean, he started his kingdom back and became a good king, and who knows what happened there too. So she did change a lot, whether she stopped she actually helped Guy or not, that's a different story. But she definitely was involved with a lot.
Yeah,
Well,
we did have a few instances of fate. Most people talk fate machines. The first being from the Atlantean Empire had the fate machine, a wish granting device. You have Hitomi's pendant that could change fate. Of course, she thought her cards were doing the thing, was doing the changing of fate, but it was really the pendant thing. And then we have the fate redirector, that little fate redirector that Dunkirk had, and then you had a smaller fate machine that Fulton stole from the Empire to make his own fate redirector after this experiment with the Catgirl's fate for the good luck warriors. So,
which is one of the dumbest things. You can change your luck, and therefore you're really good warrior. I know a lot of fantasy games has luck in the game, but you really can't change luck most of the times. It's just one of those really stupid concepts, in my opinion.
Shoot, luck is one of my dump stats in Fallout, so hey.
Well, so basically, yeah, they basically had, I guess in gaming terms, to when they're on the scene, the likelihood that everyone else is going to be rolling critical failures goes up significantly, basically. And they're going to roll 20s, That's it. I mean,
well, anyways, we do find that the mysterious Emperor Dunkirk, he wants to start this worldwide worldwide battle to go on, so you can make everybody's lives better. You'll use the fate redirect, fate machine to change everybody's fate into a good luck fate. They call it absolute fortune zone.
And this is another one of the reasons why it gets kind of weird and silly that they felt the need to do this whole Alan backstory with Delandau and his sister, quote unquote, because you already have the backstory that Dunkirk was actually an acquaintance of his father. And you have this whole thing of Alan being pissed off at his father for leaving and all this kind of stuff. And then eventually there's that connection with Dunkirk, and there was a lot of stuff they could have played with that they probably didn't, stuff they probably could have played with better. But the point being that you already had a whole heap of backstory that could have been mined for more. You didn't need to make it more complicated.
To me, it all started to go really to heck after they visited the plains of Atlantis, essentially, where she learns the backstory of Atlantis and all of that stuff. At that point, I kind of lost it after that. Like what?
Well, Atlantis is pretty much the most mystical city they could come up with. So of course they had to find Atlantis.
They didn't really have to come up with it. It exists in history concepts. I mean, Atlantis is this mysterious, mythical thing of all history.
That's buried underneath the sea. Yeah, so that's where they got their ideas from. But again, I do find it interesting. There are several different vectors in the show going on at the same time, with Hitomi trying to use her dowsing ability to help the good guys. You had the good luck warriors trying to change fate, the fateful encounter to make them win. It was kind of a big mess. But we do come to a point where I don't know how we're definitely getting towards the end of the story, because we're definitely running through it. Eventually, the Zybok Empire does fall. The machines of war that had fallen apart because of the effect of the efforts of the Allies. The Allies had decided to group together. They would want to get rid of the Zybok Empire. They had enough of the burnings and the lootings and all this stuff. They want to get rid of them. And so through their concerted efforts, they had finally pretty much defeated the Zybox, and of course, in turn started a number of little wars, which
right. Well, essentially, the Ultimate Fate engine. Basically, what's his face? Was trying to create the ultimate. Dornkirk was trying to create the device that the Atlanteans had to allow everyone to have their wish. And I guess the idea being that so many people had war in their hearts that when everyone got their own wish, it pretty much was they just went to war even harder than before.
I love how everybody, the Alliance, broke apart and just started fighting each other. Like, oh, the Empire's gone, now let's kill each other. Like,
Bond was just screaming as what you guys are doing? The Zybox are still hanging out. We got to get rid of them. Everybody's like, oh, we want to go ahead and fight each other so we can take dominance from everybody else. They have an atomic bomb looking kind of.
It's the power vacuum. It's the power vacuum, basically. And when you have a power vacuum, it's like, what are we going to do with this? And it's what it would go through history, throughout battles and normal history, and why many countries have been dominated or taken over all those times. It's power vacuums.
Which is one of the reasons, I mean, I feel like I get, at least, what maybe they were trying to do with this. And the whole idea, again, we talked about Von has to learn not to think in terms of winning, in terms of battle, in terms of competition. He has to learn to think in terms of love and acceptance. And I like that idea. I like that theme. But the fact of the matter is, most humans, their default setting is competition. The default setting is battle, is I cannot lose. I will refuse to lose to these people. I'm going to, Yeah. And so they did a pretty interesting job of illustrating that. Is it frustrating to watch? Yes, it is. But I kind of did like that they went there, at least briefly, because because there's some truth to it.
Well, at least the good news is that because of the good fortune zone, we got the best battle in the whole anime, which is the fight between Alan Cesar and Von Fonnel. At their best. At their best performance, they're at the height of their abilities. That went on. I think the fight went on for at least I would think 7 minutes, maybe a little bit longer.
It was a sizable chunk of the episode, yeah.
Yeah, it was a big deal because they always said that Von Fonnel, I want to defend my sister, because at that time Delandu was finally revealed as Alan Cesar's sister. Von wanted to get rid of him and her at Delandu, and now they're trying to get rid of and kill the perpetrator. Alan says no, and now they have a big battle. And of course, buoyed by the good fortune zone, everybody is witnessing this big battle between two powerful guy melts with two really talented swordsmen. It was really well choreographed. I had a lot of fun. I probably one of the scenes in the whole show, which I tend to watch 2 or 3 or 4 times. Yeah.
Right.
Well, everybody's silence tells me what I need to know. It's a pretty darn good scene. So yeah.
No, this is where I really saw that animation issue that I was talking about Gaimel fights. So this is where I really saw it glaring in that battle. So
the flips over and grabs it again and starts fighting.
No, I'm saying the foreground people standing and watching.
I wasn't paying attention to people. I was watching the fight, so to me it was good.
Yeah, I wasn't looking at the people. I was watching the two guy melts go at it. And so
it's supposedly the middle of a battle, and everybody's just standing and watching these two guys.
I wasn't looking at people. The mechs were interesting.
And of course, by the inevitably, Don would have to win the battle, which he does, because there was some sort of unforeseen event caused Alan Cesar to divert his attention to his sister, and of course, Van kind of slips in a quick sword jab that takes care of the Shahjanad for that particular battle. And there's other things. I know there's a whole bunch of stuff that we can talk about. There was Alan Cesar's father looking for a he left behind a special map manual, and all that stuff is peripheral to me. Because it all comes down to this one event where where Longford has. Well, go ahead.
They even
well, there's also the whole thing of he left his family to find this mysterious woman who we find out is Hitomi's grandmother, and that's like kind of a weird little circular thing there.
And
but
fate directed that happen.
Yeah.
That's one of the things.
Hitomi's good. Alan Cesar's father finds the pendant and the book, or makes a book, and then gives the necklace to Hitomi's grandmother. So he goes back to Japan. The book conveniently disappears with Alan's father's demise, and the whole rusty wheel is starting to turn at that time to make this whole thing happen at episode 26.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I guess we talked about the storyline. I guess we can talk if everybody would like to. I would like to go on with what do you think is your favorite music to it, or favorite music parts, or favorite scenes?
Well, again, I'll mention I do think the music was quite solid, more or less throughout. The opening scene, of course, the opening music, you got the music by Yoko Kanno, you got vocals by Maya Sakamoto, who has done quite a few opening themes in addition to being a very talented seiyuu herself. So I really do like the opening song. I like the ender, but not as much. Neither one is one I would necessarily write home about, but they certainly worked for the show.
They're okay. My favorite song in this, and it was also in the movie track, is the Escaflowne theme. I mean, that's the theme for Escaflowne, because you get the
kind of choral one.
Chorus come in and
yeah.
Yeah, that was really great.
My favorite is still the opening theme.
But yeah, and then again, as far as the general setup and whatever, I will agree with Brittany. I did notice a few animation shortcuts. I probably didn't notice as many as she did, but I noticed a few. There were a few things I wasn't crazy about design, a few characters who were too similar. But for the most part, I think most of the characters had decently notable designs. A few of them stood out a little more than the others. We haven't really mentioned the Catgirl sisters by name. I believe they are Aria and Naria. They, I thought, had some pretty cool design to them.
Kind of reminded me of the Puma sisters from Tank Police. Yeah,
I have to say, this is origins of furries. This is the origin of people that would be furries.
There were a lot of beast people in here that were just like people with very exaggerated animal features. Like it was a little different from what I'm used to with these kind of things. Like, of course, with Slayers, they kind of lean harder into the beast-like features, and then you have those weird ass fishmen. But
fishmen definitely were weird ass. Definitely.
I know we talked a little about the art. Personally, my personal opinion about the art and design of Escaflowne is top notch. I mean,
Right.
I'll admit-
time, we have to remember this is from the mid
Yeah.
mid '90s.
Yeah.
So before this, we had good anime out there. Of course, we had good anime, but this is a very long anime series.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of effort to make this stuff look good all the way through, which it does, I think, successfully do.
And it should have been longer.
There are some humdinger parts to it. I understand about that, but just like in when was it Neon Genesis Evangelion, the effort to make the whole thing look cohesive and well done. I think it's to be praised. Now, Sunrise really did a great job and really shows that Sunrise can really make a good show, other than like Gundam. So this is a radical departure from Gundam. Sunrise.
I will state the mechas are well designed in this series. The character designs are a bit off. The background art is stunning. So whoever is the background artist that worked in this series deserves high praise.
Oh yeah.
The animation is stiff, and considering Sunrise at the same time was doing other series that were more impressive, and then you had competition with like Gainax doing Evangelion at the time. The concept could have been better with animation wise. I felt the animation was pretty stiff, even with the characters a lot, and it kind of got a little jumbled a bit here and there, in my opinion. It was beautiful to look at, but if you know what you're to look for errors, they will scream at you. And so that's why when I went through this series, I was looking for those errors, where they would be. And I noted, during the fights, but there would even be scenes where you're seeing the ships fly, and the guy at the wheel, he has like three motions, and that's it. And you can be like, oh, turning. And he's just standing there with no emotion on his face, turning the wheel. And that's the most animation you get in that scene. And this is one of the first series that got digital animation versus cell animation. So this was right at that point where anime started going digital. So that's why it looks cleaner, it looks crisper than anime at that time from a lot of things.
So do you consider this Escaflowne to be a major work or a major failure?
A little bit of both. I feel like it's to note for its history in the artwork, but it's a failure in writing and plot.
Right.
It's half the show's gone. Oh my god. Oh.
So yeah, I feel if they had a better crew, and honestly, what tears me up is they were working on Macross Plus at the same time, and you had fewer characters, but you had amazing backgrounds, amazing animation in that one, and it had a great plot, and it was literally just about two guys after one girl. That's literally what the plot is.
Not even at first, though.
I will also personally throw out, because I haven't really commented on the mechs myself. I do think the title Gamalef, Escaflowne, is pretty cool looking. I think Escaflowne, both the mech form and the dragon form, I like the design a lot. The others I thought ranged from to pretty good, but I did like the particular design of that one.
Thinking of mechs around that time, there were a lot of mechs that didn't have sort of such functionality. They were just kind of these boxy cut art things. And I hate to say it, with Gundam, it was a lot of just really bland looking mechs. And Escaflowne gave some interest and flair to the mechs. And that's when Gundam started giving flair to their mechs. And of course you had the mechs in Macross, where you had transforming mechs in that series.
Well, each one of them has, I think that as we've gone on, the mechs have taken definitely more of a definition. I mean, shoot, the ones in Ava definitely.
So I think we need to cover this Gundam series everybody talks about.
You're in for a long run there.
Which one?
At least part of it or something, because everyone's like, there was like songs and shit, and I'm like, what the hell is this Gundam? Like, I had no fucking clue.
Gundam is a behemoth. I haven't even tackled it because
I will say, if we were going to tackle any of Gundam, I would say it'd be the Orphans story, which is 2 full seasons.
War of the Pirates. I
Bro,
think
what happy Stardust Memories? 0083.
Okay, Stardust Memories, maybe.
Oh,
War in the Pocket is my favorite Gundam series because it's very short and it's very good.
My only problem with War in the Pocket is I remember that damn commercial so many freaking times.
And it's a Christmas one. It's a Christmas one.
maybe sometime we could talk about Unicorn. That was pretty good.
Yeah, but I mean, there are some decent ones, decent mech series that kind of fall by the wayside. And I mean, this is an interesting mech series because we have it in a fantasy element.
I think that's what we're going to do for January. We're going to make January Mecha January. We're going to pick a mech series and we're going to cover it in January.
Okay.
Gundam style.
Okay, so with that, with all those things aside, does anybody else want to talk about the animation? Kroll, did you want to talk about something about the animation?
It was great. I mean, like I had said originally, I thought it looked great. I'm not familiar with a lot of anime, so I can't really compare it to other stuff, but it looked really good. I mean, it looked good, like good old American cartoons, which I've always loved. So I enjoyed it. I didn't really have any issues with any of the artwork, which I do with a lot of anime I've seen, or so yeah, it was good. I liked everything except the Barbra Streisand nose. Okay, I didn't really care for that either, but
I'm curious what you mean by Barbra Streisand nose, because to me this is not.
These aren't really Barbra Streisand noses. No. Barbra Streisand nose would be, beaks basically, with this art.
It feels that way. Kind of woodpeckerish noses. But actually, did we cover the music?
Kind of. I mean, like Jacob said, you had the 2 openers, the opener and the closer. And
guys, it's a pleasure for me. I mean, I actually liked that song before I saw the series, and I don't know why. It's not that great a song, but it's very catchy. I really like that song.
What song?
Mystic Eyes.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I like that.
I love the opener.
The opener is really good. Ender is something I always seem to watch with almost every single episode. So, yeah.
I love you. I believe in you. I believe in you.
Again, I just I love classical music as one of the things, and hearing Yoko Kanno do classical or jazz bits always seem to go well for me, and that's why I like the Escaflowne theme, as it was a very classical gothic feel.
Right.
All right, let's go. Getting on with it. SeptumSin, did you have anything to say about the animation style before we go on to what we like our favorite episodes were or our favorite scene?
Nothing that hasn't been covered.
All right, so let's start from the top. Kotobukijake, what was your favorite scene in the show?
Somebody got
favorite scene, huh?
Favorite scene.
Whew. That's kind of hard to say. I'm not sure there was one that really jumped out at me. There were a few that I liked that are probably fairly notable. I did like some of the ones where Delando is obsessing over that scar. I did like the scene. I did like the scene where Falcon and Vaughn were having a meeting on the edge of that city, and they were actually trying to have a brotherly heart-to-heart, and Delando felt the need to attack at that moment. and of course Hitomi came and saved Vaughn's life, essentially, because she had a vision. I kind of liked that scene. I kind of liked I liked the political aspect. So some of the scenes where politics were in play, I enjoyed. I really liked Dryden as a character. He was probably my favorite character. So some of the scenes with him, and I did, even though the whole luck thing was kind of stupid, I kind of commiserated with the Catgirl sisters. And so some of those scenes were pretty cool. I like the scene where we saw their backstory because it was actually a pretty nice little. Same thing with the doppelganger's backstory. So there were, little moments scattered throughout that I liked, but I can't pick one that was a favorite.
Okay. Kroll, do you have a favorite scene from the Escaflowne? Because he's taking a powder for now. Let's move on to Danejurous Arts. Do you have a favorite episode or a favorite scene you'd like to talk about?
I have 3 scenes I really like in this. One we kind of talked about at the beginning. It was the dragon fight at the very beginning. It's amazing seeing a dragon come into that. The next scene was the first time we see Escaflowne transform into the dragon kite. So I love seeing the sort of function that we get in there. And the last one, which is a guilty pleasure, it's Delandau going insane, saying cut, cut, cut all that time.
Yeah.
It's so much better in the sub than it is in the dub. Because he sounds more insane in the sub than he does in the dub.
All right, SeptumSin, do you have a favorite scene or episode?
I keep actually when the mole guy, which we kind of skipped over him, he was a fun character.
Oh yeah,
he ends up getting in there, and we get to meet Alan for the first time. I found that amusing. Also, taking Van a couple of pegs down didn't hurt.
right.
It was annoying, and he got what he deserved, and I was good with that.
Of course, there were a couple of parts where we could have called that character a Deus Ex Machina.
He reminded me a lot of a character that would be the next series we are going to talk about, but he doesn't even show up in the season we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And I think most of us know who that character is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my favorite scenes, I think I've pretty much talked about it. The first one would be I agree with Inaba that the dragon scene with the dragon fight in the beginning was, it blew me away. The second one I liked was the fight with Balgus with this giant sword versus the Melfs. The third one would be the final fight between Alan and Vaughn. I can't just ignore that and say that the show would not be as fun to me without that in there. So I say that would be one of my best and my favorite scene of the whole show. Really brought the house down for me.
Well, Kroll.
Okay, I'll go now.
All right, buddy. You have a favorite scene or a favorite episode?
Yeah, that fight between Vaughn and Alan is definitely my favorite scene. Any of the fights with Delandau, as much as he was annoying and I wanted to put him over my knee, I liked his fights. And when he went crazy, that was a cool scene. He just kind of freaked out because he got cut. It was just kind of like, what the hell's he freaking out? He's just a little cut, and he's just like freaking the fuck out. So that was pretty cool. As far as favorite characters, I don't know. Popular. This isn't popular, but I'd have to say the cat girl is probably my favorite character. I did really like her. I did really like how she was just constantly following Vaughn, constantly worrying about him, constantly wanting her away from her, like, he's mine, and I don't know, I just like the character, even though she didn't have a huge backstory or development. I just like the character, and I just liked her, and I like the villain cat girls too. I like cats, so.
Right.
So I say, and I gotta put his music. I love the beginning theme song. Like I said, it's been stuck in my head for like a month. I mean, obviously, like the Japanese thing is in my head, but I can't sing the Japanese because I don't know Japanese. So I have to sing the American or think of the American words. But it's there. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I can think in Japanese. Just can't
Actually,
speak it right.
that brings up a question for me. They did redub that song for the English one, right?
Yeah.
Which one?
The one of them. I don't know which one. I didn't watch the English dub, but my DVD would play different audio tracks, and I kept hearing something with English lyrics. I can't remember which song it was, but
all of the ones I kept running across in the dub were in Japanese, with the exception of the Escaflowne theme. But the Escaflowne theme is mainly them chanting Escaflowne. So,
yeah, they would sing it in Japanese, and then you just have to read the words in English. So I mean, I kind of would sing along with it by using the American words for me, but they actually were singing in Japanese. So that's why in my mind, I know the Japanese, but I can't actually say it because I can't speak Japanese. But it's kind of cool, that it's like in my head as Japanese, but I can translate it a little bit because of the translations on the show.
I admit, even with my very favorite anime themes, it's hard for me to sing along. I mean, as much as I want to sometimes.
I do. I love singing. I love singing. I don't have a good voice. No one else wants to hear me sing, but I enjoy it.
I sing along with a lot of them. I was singing along with one before we started. Actually, I was singing along with the second season opener to Spy Family called "Souvenir" from Bump the Chicken.
Very good.
Which, by the way, Japan knows how to name bands. I gotta say.
Yeah. Bump of Chicken is an interesting one. Yes.
Okay, well, with that, was anybody else want to have any kind of comment about Escaflowne before I turn over to SeptumSin?
No.
I enjoyed it.
I think about does it.
All right.
We dumped on it a lot, but overall, I did find it an entertaining series, and I've seen much worse. I've seen much better. I've seen much worse.
I have to state this. I don't think I stated this on the stream. As I said, I collected this in VHS as it initially came out. It first came out in sub before they had a dub, and they put it in these damn pillbox boxes that you could not stack on a VHS shelf, and it annoyed me to death.
Man.
They would not sit up on a shelf on their own. They were so wobbly, and you had to stack them horizontally and not vertically.
All right. Well, for my final talk about it, I really enjoyed Escaflowne. At the time, was one of the most important animes I had ever watched. I considered it in like the number 25 of my top 25 animes of all time for many a year. Of course, all the things change, and of course, the annals of time now had to go back to SeptumSin. So take it away, SeptumSin. Thank you for your time today.
All right. Well, thanks for kind of running us through this. Much better than what I would have done, to be sure. So December, of course, isn't over. I guess it's the month that keeps on giving, because on the 27th, so that last Tuesday of the month, we'll be discussing a favorite of mine. Matter of fact, the series that got me into anime in the first place, Ranma 1/2. So that's going to be fun. Well, just the first season.
A true classic of anime. A true classic.
One that got...
Yes. A true classic that hasn't aged as well as it could have, but still a lot of fun.
Hey, you got to give it credit. It's a female creator created it. You just got to keep that in mind. Female creator created it.
It's definitely considered a gateway anime. It's definitely something you want to...
Oh, it is a gateway anime.
Yes, definitely.
So, yeah.
And of course, in January, we will do something else with Mecha again and see where it takes us.
All right.
All right.
We'll be doing a Genocyber.
No.
Well, I mean, that's